The Dallas Stars and Seattle Kraken have had a very back and forth kind of a series. The Stars now trail 2-1. Dane Lewis of Locked On Stars is here to explain what the Stars need to do to even up the series, maybe even pull off the win. We've got that and more coming up on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone for making Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. And we are also now available on SiriusXM on the SXM app. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Stars, Dane Lewis. And Dane, rough game three for the Dallas Stars. You know, it's sort of been a tale of two series. When the Stars are playing well, they're more than capable of winning, but it's been highs and lows. What has been the biggest difference between the game Dallas won in this series and the two where they've come up short?
I think a big part of it is a lack of preparedness, maybe just with how Seattle plays their game. And I think we saw a little bit of that even in game one. They're a good forechecking team. They play with a lot of speed. They can roll four lines. You look at their roster and I feel like it's hard to pinpoint one superstar player on that Seattle roster, but you look and it's just so much depth. And you say that, this is a guy that I would want on my team, or, this is a guy I wouldn't mind having on my team's roster. And Dallas, I think, has that as well. But it's just been in the two games they've lost, especially on Sunday night, that they just look ill-prepared and no answer for what Seattle throws their way. And normally you can, get by with that sometimes if you have a good performance from your goalie. But Jake Oettinger with maybe the worst performance, not just in his playoff career, but maybe his entire career, at least the worst I've seen him in recent memory, only saving 12 of 17 shots, and eventually does get pulled after the second period for Scott Wedgwood. And then, he has a bad night. You lose Miro Heiskanen to injury in the middle of the second period, or really near the beginning of the second period, right when Seattle starts to score their goals and get some momentum. So a mixture of things go into this game 3 loss and making it as ugly as it was. But at the end of the day, I just don't think the Stars were prepared, which doesn't make a lot of sense because they did see all this in game 1. And I thought they countered it really well in game 2. And so it seems like they had their memory wiped, it seemed, between games 2 and 3. And now they have, kind of have their backs against the wall here in a must-win situation here for game 4 on Tuesday.
Yeah, how concerned are you about Oettinger? I mean, he's carried this team most of the season or been a big reason for why they won. You think this is a fluke kind of a thing, or is he maybe just a little tired? I mean, what?
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of fatigue thrown in there. I mean, we all know that the Stanley Cup playoffs are unforgiving and they're, ruthless just in terms of what it demands of you as an athlete and what your body goes through mentally, what you go through. And he played 60 plus games for the Stars in the regular season. So, I mean, he's gone through a lot this year, but I want to lean towards more the side of this is a fluke type performance. The sample size for Jake Oettinger has mostly been good in his career. He has a few bad games every now and then. Normally when he has a bad game, he normally bounces back in a big way the next time out. I think we saw that a little bit earlier on in this series. We saw it against Minnesota in the last series. So I'm still fully confident that Jake Oettinger can help be the backbone of this team. I think he just had a rough night and a night that he probably needed that 20 minutes of rest in the third period to gather his thoughts. And hopefully he's able to sleep it off and, get to practice on Monday and, reset his focus, reset his mind. And I'm still confident. And I imagine the team is as well in his ability. Because again, the sample size is too great. And no one's perfect. And that includes guys that are as good at their jobs as Jake Oettinger is. And I think he and the team are going to find a way to respond. It's just a matter of, how effectively they can do it. And he is going to be a big part of that on Tuesday.
So between now and Tuesday, what do the Stars need to do to sort of get things back in order and compete to win game 4?
Yeah, well, I think it does need to start a little bit with playing a little bit tighter around the crease. I mean, Jake Oettinger, not the best night. A lot of those shots he probably should have saved, but his defensemen, even with Miro Heiskanen missing a good chunk of that game, I mean, they could still do a lot more to help him out. And that's kind of been an issue all season long. And I know we've talked about this before, even with other recordings, other episodes, saying, you know, if the Stars are going to fall out of the playoffs or lose the series, what might be the reason? And that's always been one of the reasons I point to is a lack of consistency defensively, you know, making life difficult for those forwards down low, and, you know, not giving away those easy opportunities in the low slot or kind of around the dots. And the Stars didn't do that on Sunday night. So they need to play a lot more disciplined defensively, but they also do need to find a way to counter that Seattle forecheck, clear their defensive zone, but then also find a way to get those clean zone entries offensively and get the offense going. I mean, Jason Robertson has really been silent this whole series. Roope Hintz has cooled down rather quite a bit. Joe Pavelski finally held off the score sheet on Sunday, but I mean, you got to find a way to get somebody going because there was really just no sense of life offensively for the Stars on Sunday. A couple goals, but I mean, any momentum from those were pretty quickly squashed out by Seattle.
How concerned are you about Heiskanen long term?
I'm not too worried. I know that TBS announced during the broadcast that he was supposed to come back in before the second intermission. And then, you know, Stars PR did announce middle of the third that he wouldn't return. It's my understanding that it was more of the score's so lopsided. Let's not force Miro back out there to risk any additional injury. From everything I understand, it's resting up. But I mean, he's been a workhorse for the Stars in the playoffs as well, similar to Jake. He's played, I think he leads the NHL in time on ice in the postseason, and he was probably up there in the regular season as well, at least in terms of defensemen. And so he's important. I'm not too concerned about his health, but if for some reason this does become an issue and he's not able to play in game 4, my concern level for the Stars and their ability to win this series, it rises quite a bit.
I would assume he's very important as far as getting that puck out of the defensive zone and transitioning to offense.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the biggest things he does, but I mean, he plays in all situations, whether it's, 5-on-5, the penalty kill, power play. I mean, he's out there all the time and he does a lot for this team. And so, but a big part of it is those zone entries and exits. You're absolutely right.
Is there one player who, besides Oettinger, who we've already discussed, who you really feel, is close, but, if they could just raise their game a notch, it would make a big difference for the Stars going forward?
I think the answer has to be Jason Robertson. He's maybe the most snake-bitten player in the postseason so far, just in terms of goal scoring, and he did have a few looks during Sunday night's game, had some really good looks during game 2 on Thursday, and he just hasn't been able to cash in a while. And I mean, a guy who scored 100-plus points in the regular season, back-to-back 40-goal seasons last year and this year, and he really has been a non-factor for the most part in the postseason. And if the Stars can find a way to get him going, I think that changes a lot for them offensively. But so far, it's been very, very quiet for the best one of the best forwards on the team and one of the best offensive talents this organization has seen in several years. And I know he's still young. His playoff career is still somewhat getting started, but at some point the kid gloves have to come off, and you have to finally get some production from a guy that you're considering your superstar.
Makes sense. All right, Dane, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
Sure. They can find me on social media at Locked On Stars, Instagram, Twitter. Myself, I'm on Twitter as well, just at Dane_Lewis. And then, of course, Locked On Stars can be found anywhere that you can find Locked On NHL, YouTube, anywhere that you get podcasts, Spotify, Apple, and also on Sirius XM. I know you mentioned that at the top of the show. Locked On Stars is on there as well.
All right, Dane, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for stopping by.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. There's no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's is a powerful hiring platform that can help you do it all. We streamline hiring with powerful tools that help you find matched candidates. And with Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed Data US. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/lockedon. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit at Indeed.com/lockedon. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed.